Grids are a way of organizing our content into columns. Using grids is not always a good idea on mobile devices because their screens are so small, but they're sometimes necessary, so let's take a look at how you do them in jQuery Mobile. So if you were following along with the previous movie, you saw that under the video section, we created a list of items. I'm going to begin by getting rid of that list because we're going to make it into a grid. So here's the videos page, and I have a UL right here, and it ends all the way down here. So I'm going to delete that. So all I have is a div data role content on this page, and I'm going to place my list right there. So I'm going to go to code snippets and grab this first piece of code right here. It's really just a list of videos with an image and a title. So I'm going to grab it right there and paste them into our content area. You can see the images are really big. And here's our div right here. So there's 4 types of grid layouts in jQuery Mobile, and they let you create anything from a 2 to a 5 column grid. Grids are invisible, which means that they will not take up any room. And to create a grid, all you have to do is create a div element using one of the 5 grid types. So you add a class to your div element, and your class is going to be one of 5 grid types. So you could say UI grid and then a letter from A to D. And these are the 5 different types. Now, this is not going to do anything yet because we need to take each one of the items that we want to appear within the grid and make sure that we tag them appropriately. So these are also going to need divs. And this time, the divs will have a class, and the class can be one of 5 different tags. So the class for the divs will be UI and then hyphen block and then A through E for each of the 5 different column types. So this means that this item right here is going to be in the first column of this UI grid A, which has by default 2 columns. So I need to do that to all these. So let me type that in here. This one's going to be UI block B. And the next one is going to be UI block A again. It's already putting them into columns over here. You could see that those first 2 are in columns. This one's not. The images are a little bit too big, so we'll fix that in just a minute. So let me finish coding this. This is going to be a div class UI block A, and then we'll put the content inside. Like to indent things a little bit. And this one's going to be div, again, class UI block B. Then we'll put the content in there. And now all of our elements are in that grid. Now, it's a little bit obnoxious to see these running so close to each other. So I'm going to go and adjust my styles a little bit. So what I need to do is just make the images inside the video list have 100% width and be displayed as a block. So I'll just copy this style from right here. And then I'll open up my style sheet by opening up the underscore folder, the CSS folder. And this mystyle.css is the styles that are going to override any styles in our current project. So you can see that the individual items are taking up the width of the columns. It's not really giving you any more room. If you want them not to go so close together, you may want to set this to something like 90%. So if I want to do more columns than just the 2-column layout, all I have to do is modify this UI grid item right here and do UI grid B. That would be a 3-column layout, C a 4-column, and D a 5-column layout. And in the same way, so let's go to a B layout, which has 3 columns. I would need to make one of these appear in a 3rd column just by using the class UI block C. And now that one's in the 3rd column. Of course, the next one would have to be UI block A, and so on and so forth. So in the same way, you could just make your grids up to 5 columns by going from A to D on the UI grid class for the container div and going from A to E on the items themselves. Now, I told you that grids don't add any room to items. So I'm going to go to mystyles.css and I'll make that into 100. So it's not really taking any room in between, but you are noticing a little bit of padding outside. Let me redo that change to 90%. That space that you see on the outside is happening because we have a data role content area. So you could take that out and the grid will be flush to the container of the page. Or if this space is bothering you, you could overwrite that with CSS later. I'm going to leave it in, and then I'm going to grab this, and I have a version of this that's all finished. So I'll just take that one out, go into my code snippets, and here's a finished grid. And I'll grab that and place it right here. And that is a much better organized grid. And you can see that I shortened some of these titles so they'd be a little bit easier to read. So grids are sometimes the best way and sometimes the only way to display certain types of info. So make sure you spend some time exploring how to create the different types.